Five stars.
And that's no moon.
Okay, hello and welcome again to 5 Stars and That's No Moon. It's me, Azmi, and I'm here again with Jed. Hello, Jed.
It's me, Jed. Yay!
Hello, Jed. How are you? How was your Star Wars weekend?
Oh, it's good. We're recording this on May the 5th, and it's one day after May the 4th, and then we had the May the 4th festivities. Why do I not know how to say that word? Over the weekend at the Art Science Museum. It was a lot of fun. Yeah, this is my first year participating as crew, which we talked about in the previous episode, and it was a smaller scale event, but, props to all the organizers, Hanson, Jeffrey, and gang, and everyone involved in putting it together, all of the 501st crew, and Krenak Clan, and Qatar Outpost, everybody involved in putting together the event. We have such a great Star Wars fan community in Singapore, and there's so many interesting people doing interesting things, and we have mentioned so many names in the first episode already. People like Suhaimi, who are so interesting and have such an rich history with Star Wars. And it's always nice to see that represented in person. It's always nice to see families come and kids dressed up as Rey, or kids dressed up as BB-8, and they get to interact with people. And seeing all the people in costume, and especially this year with the safe distancing and everything, still managed to be a fun time, and still managed to get a lot of attention and, lower key than many other years, but still a lot of fun, I'd say.
So what was your favorite part of the May the 4th SG? You have a favorite part or all of it?
I think this year my favorite part was definitely getting a little bit of a backstage perspective. And I'm a toy collector and customizer, so I always look forward to trying to get cosplayers to hold toys. And this year we had a double layer event, so I managed to get both the Huttslayer and Senator Leia figures to get them to be held by the cosplayers wearing the relevant outfits. And then I also had a Mando cosplayer, Michael, hold my Mando figure. I'm very proud of my unmasked Pedro Pascal custom head sculpt, which was made by taking a cast of a Cassian Andor head sculpt and then beefing out the jaw. So my Pedro Pascal is Diego Luna with more jaw.
I like your Pedro Pascal custom. It looks really good actually. It really looks like Pedro Pascal actually.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, I think it's not photorealistic, but I think you can kind of recognize that it's him.
Yeah. I mean, with the mustache
yeah.
and all that, I mean, you can easily recognize it's Pedro Pascal. My favorite, my favorite part of the May the 4th SG is definitely seeing the toys, the toy display. I've seen many toy displays over the years, especially at May the 4th. And I think even though it's a really small scale, I think they try to get as many toys as they can to display in the room. And since it's Bad Batch year, the theme of the display is Clone Wars. Yeah, and we have all the vehicles and all the characters that were in the Clone Wars.
Yeah, and they also had a lot of the vintage figures that were all, mint in sealed condition in acrylic slabs, all very well preserved. And it's crazy because you look at them and they look so clean and so fresh that it's as if they are reissues, but they are not. They were actually preserved in that condition from the 80s, which is always fun to see. And also you have to fight the temptation to open it. Not that it's possible. And you just hear the scream, like Superman's dying scream at the beginning of the Snyder Cut where he yells for 10 minutes.
Yeah, I think all in all, it was a very successful event. I think the first day of the May the 4th SG, the booking slots were all filled up within an hour or so of when the slots were open for booking, I believe. Yeah.
Yeah, there was so much demand for it, and it's good to see people want to go out for stuff. And it's always a balance because in Singapore we've just had new COVID restrictions imposed, and we managed to have this event just before those were announced. And I don't think it would be possible to have this event like just a few days later. So everyone's got to be careful, but at the same time, we understand how much people miss this, and I definitely missed it. And also another highlight, Azmi, was getting to meet your wife and your kid, getting to see Luke for the first time.
Yeah, finally. I think I actually couldn't believe that you haven't met my son, Luke, before, because he's like always
right?
around at May the 4th SG.
So this is like the first official time that I met Luke, and I got to hang out backstage and with people like Dominic and Kimberly, and Dominic suggested a certain Star Wars character named Lu'ulo La'ampar, whom we may look into. Only people from the region will find this funny.
Yes, especially when you say it in a Singaporean or maybe a Malaysian accent.
Yeah, so if you're not Singaporean or Malaysian or you don't speak the dialect, please ask your friends to explain to you why we find the name Lampar so funny. But anyway, that's not what we're here to talk about today. Today we're here to talk about the premiere episode, the 70-plus minute long premiere episode of The Bad Batch, which just dropped on Disney+. And the whole of yesterday morning and early afternoon, Azmi was like, why is it not 3 o'clock yet?
Yes, I was complaining to Jed on Messenger. I was like, why isn't it 3 o'clock? Why isn't it 3 o'clock? It was like almost every 15 minutes I say that.
Give me my Bad Batch. Give it to me.
In the end, I watched it and I actually fell asleep waiting for it. I fell asleep about 2:30, and then when I woke up, it's about like 4 p.m. And then I was like, shit, I missed it. I'm gonna watch it now. So I actually got on the TV and watched Bad Batch premiere episode, and then I watched it again at night with some of my Fight Saber folks. We have
you had a watch party.
Yeah, we had a watch party, and actually enjoyed it. I still enjoyed it the second time of watching. Yeah.
Yeah, I watched it twice as well, and I watched it to get ready for the press conference brag. That actually there's nothing to brag about because I didn't get to ask any questions. It was 20 minutes long, and I think they had pre-selected the people who were asking the questions. But yeah, it was fun. It was a press conference with the head writer and executive producer Jennifer Corbett, the executive producer and supervising director Brett Rao, and D. Bradley Baker, who is the voice of the Bad Batch and every single clone that you've ever heard. Since around 2008, every clone has been that man. And that was a lot of fun. And, just the performance of D. Bradley Baker in terms of how he makes each member of the Bad Batch sound distinct and sound different, but yet you can still believe that they are related, that they're all clones. That is such a tricky thing. And it was so impressive to hear that he literally goes through the script and just jumps from voice to voice. He doesn't do all of Wrecker's lines at once, and then afterwards all of Tech's lines. No, he just jumps from character to character to character, and that's so badass.
That really is amazing, and really, yes, badass. I would think that he would have done like each character at one time, but then, as you said, he jumps from one character to the other, and I wonder how many breaks he had doing that.
Yeah, just going straight through the script, and really, most of the scenes involved at least a few of these characters. And you have the credit at the end, it says The Bad Batch voiced by D. Bradley Baker, and they don't even have to say each character's name.
The credit should just put the Bad Batch and all other clones, except for the younger clones, are voiced by D. Bradley Baker. Okay, from now on, here's a disclaimer. From now on, there'll be spoilers for the Bad Batch premiere episode, titled Aftermath. Aftermath. How am I say Aftermath? Who says Aftermath?
Aftermath. Aftermath is PE.
Preferably Aftermath would be like dismissal.
Yes. Aftermath, let me go home, please. But
right.
We'll mark it out. And when I say we, I mean Azmi, who is doing all the hard work. Azmi will mark it out in the episode notes, and you can skip past to the point where we stop talking about spoilers. Maybe let's do like a little bit of a non-spoilery premise thing, and then we'll get into spoilers. Let's do that.
All right, sure. So you want to start?
Yeah, so this is set right after like season 7 of the Clone Wars. It is a spin-off, and it's kind of like season 7.5, and they introduced the Bad Batch in the early episodes of season 7, the first 4 episodes of that. season war an arc about the Bad Batch, and you sort of saw them go and rescue Echo, and Echo joined their ranks, and now this is the spin-off adventure. And the idea is that we are in the very, very final moments of the Galactic Republic and the very first moments of the Galactic Empire.
Literally.
So this, yeah, just like literally, that's the draw, I think, for a lot of Star Wars fans, is the setting and seeing how this group of characters navigates that new world. And I love what Brad Rao said in the press conference. He said that, you think about it, right? Now they don't have a mess hall to go and eat. Now they don't have a place to go and refuel and gear up. They have to figure all of that out on their own. Because they are basically like free agents. And they had, yes, they've definitely been different from the regs, but they had the support of the Grand Army of the Republic, and now they don't have that. And so this is the journey of those characters figuring out their place in a galaxy that's changing. And we are also going to see like the point of view of people across the galaxy who don't know what's hit them yet. They don't know how bad the Empire is going to be. They're just like, oh, war's over. And we're going to see that. And then we're also going to see characters that we're familiar with. We already know that Fennec Shan and Saw Gerrera and some other characters are going to be in the series. So I think it'll be fun to mainly follow the Bad Batch, but also see a section of Star Wars timeline that hasn't really been explored in the shows or the movies. It's been explored in books and stuff like that. But this, like, the very first moments of the Empire, we haven't seen it on screen yet.
Yeah, I think in previous seasons of Clone Wars, there were like a few clone troopers who like have this existential crisis looming and say, what are we going to do after the war ends? And as you can see that the Bad Batch is going to live through that. It's actually, the war really doesn't end for them. It's just one war after another. It's probably like, that's their lot in life.
Yeah, and it's also the thing of like, wait a minute, do we want to serve the Empire? Because they definitely have a lot more autonomous thinking than the regular clones, and there's the whole thing about the inhibitor chip, about what happens during Order 66, so we'll get into that in the spoiler section, because we do see a little bit of that in the premiere episode, and it's fun because I think we already were introduced to these characters in the Clone Wars. So now we are reintroduced to them, but we definitely get to know a lot more about each of their personalities and also see how they work together as a team just from the first episode alone. And I think the pilot episode does change the status quo a little bit. It does shake things up. So it's like you knew these people from that episode, those episodes, but now things are going to change a little bit.
Okay, off the bat, who's your favorite Clone Force 99 character?
In any media, I always gravitate towards the tech guy, because I like to imagine that I would be the tech guy if I were in something. I am not good at maths, at science, or at computers, but I look like I could be. And that's the important thing. I look like I could be the guy in the van telling James Bond. I could look like I could be Q, you know? And tech is great, because I love that he just permanently is wearing glasses. And I relate to that. A lot of us relate to that I never worn contacts in my life. I probably never will. So it's great that he has goggles that just look like glasses. And the thing is, like, I always love the nerds, but I also love nerds that can handle themselves in a fight. And I think definitely Tech is no slouch when it comes to the combat as well. He's not what you'd think of as a fighter, but he is there. You know, he's providing the support, and he also talks a lot, which I can relate to, and all of you will come to know the longer you listen to this show for. So yeah, Tech's my favorite.
Yeah, I like Tech as well, because I echo you about the glasses thing. I've never worn contacts, and I probably never will as well. I just like the convenience of having spectacles like lying around, and then when I need them, I just put it on. I don't have to like go find my contact lenses somewhere else and then like poke my eye with it. But my favorite.
So when you do like fight saver performances, are you like basically half blind?
Yeah. Basically that's it. All just is a blur, and basically just rely on my muscle memory and
I respect that.
and rely on the partner doing the choreography with me. It's just this level of trust not to get hit on the head by your partner. Yeah. So actually, my favorite character of the Clone Force 99 is Wrecker. I think he's such a fun character. He's the brawler type. He's big, he's goofy, and I think a lot of us actually can relate to or know someone like Wrecker.
Yeah, I love that moment in the Clone Wars episode where Anakin like gives him the detonator and says, this is all yours, buddy. And then Wrecker's like, this is the best day of my life. And yeah, he's big and he's got a big personality. And during the press conference, D. Bradley Baker said that Wrecker's his favorite character to voice because he feels like Wrecker is the furthest away from him in real life. So it's the most fun to get into that character. And yeah, I love the idea of, there's always a fun guy, there's a big guy, and there's a guy who's kind of like everyone's friends who'll slap you on the back and say, hey, how's it going? And that's who Wrecker is in the Bad Batch.
Yeah, and now I think we should get on to the spoiler section. Be warned.
Yes, because there are spoilers right out the bat. The very first moment of the episode, you don't want to know who is in it, what's going on if you haven't seen it yet. So spoilers from here on out. And
all right.
We'll be back if you want to skip the spoilers. Yes, Azmi, take it away.
Okay, Bad Batch Aftermath opens on a battlefield. We see Jedi Master Deepa Bilaba fight and her troops fighting against a horde of battle droids, and it seems that they were going to be overrun. And Deepa was like, "Hey, where's our backup, man? We need backup. We're dying here." And then suddenly there's a certain Jedi Padawan who appeared on screen, and his name is Caleb Doom. And we all know who Caleb Doom is Kanan in Rebels.
Yeah, and we know that Kanan's master was Depa Billaba, so it is fun to see them interact and to see a little bit of the Padawan-master relationship. And Depa Billaba in this episode is voiced by Archie Panjabi, who was on The Good Wife, who was on a bunch of stuff. And yeah, this is on the planet Kaller, if I'm not wrong. I don't know whether we have seen this planet before. But
we've only seen it on like in the comics or the Kanan comics.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so this is and I think like once this kind of announces that the show is about the Bad Batch, but we'll do a bit of bridging. There will be connections for you to look out for, and I think there's always the balance of Star Wars stuff because you want to have enough there. You want to have not just Easter eggs, but connections, things that rise above the level of, hey, look, there's that thing that I like. And I think like the second season of Mandalorian generally did that quite well when they had characters like Ahsoka and Bo-Katan and Boba Fett come back. There were things that you could hang on to if you are familiar with where they come from. And so for this, it's like, hey, that's Kanan. That's Kanan when he's a kid. And I remember you telling me yesterday, he's still voiced by Freddie Prinze Jr., which is very strange because he looks like 11. It's like a 12-year-old.
Imagine Kanan's voice, but like a less, less gruff. Less gruff Kanan, but it still really still gruff enough to sound like Kanan, but not Caleb Doom. It's hilarious. I think. I wonder why they didn't go for another voice actor for him.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe they just like had Freddie Prinze Jr. on contract or something.
It's like, fine, I'll do it. It's just one episode anyway.
But yeah, it's a little bit like DC did these animated movies that were follow-ups to the Batman 66 series, and so you had Burt Ward at like 60, 70 years old voicing Robin, and it was very strange and very funny.
Yeah, and then what happened after the Bad Batch showed up is basically they defeated the droids that were attacking the Republic troops, and then right off the bat we got Order 66 happening, and Deepa was killed by her clones, and we all know
and the
Caleb
Bad Batch,
Doom
they
survived.
don't know. Yes, if he didn't survive, there's no rebels.
Yeah, and the Bad Batch and the Bad Batch weren't aware of that. It's probably because they don't have the inhibitor chip, or the inhibitor chip were destroyed due to the mutation.
Yes, I think that's such a clever kind of thing, because the whole question of how much choice did the clones have in Order 66? Because we know that there are clones who did not kill the Jedi, and then there are various reasons for that. So for the Bad Batch, they have like a built-in reason, right? And I was asking you, like, how about Echo then? Because Echo is a reg.
Yeah, Echo was probably like have lots of his human parts, clone parts are not with him anymore. So he's like more machine than man now. Even Tech says,
Yeah, I love that line. They use that
percentage
line
wise,
as a little, like,
he's more machine.
he's more machine than man now.
Oh.
Yeah, so they kind of like have no idea what's going on when the clones turn on Deepa Balaba, and they're like, what is going on? But Crosshair says, oh, it is our mission to kill the Jedi. So Crosshair starts trying to murder Caleb Dume.
Yeah,
is what happens.
so it shows that Crosshair actually has some of the programming still inside of him as compared to the other Bad Batch members.
Yeah, and we've seen him clash with Hunter a lot in the earlier episodes. So it's kind of setting up that Crosshair isn't on board, isn't on the same page as all the rest of them.
The Bad Batch just goes back to base, to Camino, and finds out, hey, what the hell's going on? And then we see Palpatine doing his Senate speech. Say, the Republic will be reorganized into the first Galactic Empire.
This attempt at my life has left me scarred and deformed.
I like it that they use the audio from Revenge of the Sith and then just put it in there and just animate Palpatine.
Oh, I didn't realize that. So that wasn't like Ian Abercrombie coming back to do another voice. They just pulled the audio.
It sounds like it is from Revenge of the Sith because it's really similar. If it's not Ian McDiarmid, he does sounds like Ian McDiarmid. But if you realize that in Clone Wars, Palpatine sounds a little bit different.
Yeah, it was voiced by Ian Abercrombie, and here's a little bit of nonsense trivia, which I don't know whether anyone's interested in. But Ian Abercrombie voiced Palpatine, right? And he also played Alfred in the Birds of Prey TV series. And there's another actor who has done both Palpatine and Alfred. So Clive Reville, who was the episode 5 Palpatine before they had cast Ian McDiarmid. He voiced Alfred Pennyworth in the first episode of Batman the Animated Series before he was replaced by Ephraim Zimbalist Jr. So there are 2 Alfreds and Palpatines running around out there.
There you go. That's like, you can be like 2 totally different characters, like Palpatine and Alfred Pennyworth.
Yeah, and but they're both like they're both British, they're both English. So they arrive back on Kamino, and they have to pretend that they followed Order 66. They have to pretend that Caleb fell to his death, but actually he jumped across and got away free. And so we are seeing now the Kaminoans trying to renegotiate the terms of the Clone Army deal that they had made with the Republic, because the Republic has now been reorganized into the Empire, and we see Admiral Wilhuff Tarkin in the series, voiced by Stephen Stanton, who has done a bunch of voices in Clone Wars. And this is the beginnings of the idea that the Stormtroopers eventually are no longer clones. And you sort of see the very beginnings of how that transition might happen.
Yeah, and the Kaminoans was like, we need to renegotiate this deal. If not, we'll lose money. What about all these clones and all these facilities that we built just for you guys? What are we going to do with them?
Yeah, you don't want like Tonwi and Lama Su to be homeless because it's a water planet.
And then
so yeah, this
we obviously know that the overarching villain, the antagonist, is probably Tarkin.
Yes, and he has come to like reevaluate everybody, and then this is also the first time that we meet the new character Omega, who's this little kid,
who is also a clone.
Yes, that's kind of the twist, right? Because they refer to there being 5 defective clones. However, we know that Echo isn't counted among that number. So therefore, the 5th defective clone must be someone who isn't already in the Bad Batch, and then it's revealed that that is Omega. So, Asmi, this is the first time we've seen a girl clone?
Yeah, that's it. Because all of the other clones are males, and then and suddenly you see this little girl coming out from nowhere on Kamino, and on Kamino there's only like the Kaminoans and the clones. So who is this girl? So I mean, it
Yeah, and she basically looks like what if Boba wore a girl? Is her character design?
yeah, exactly. So I mean, right off the bat, I actually had a sneaking suspicion that Omega was a clone and probably a defective clone. Maybe we probably can't say defective. Maybe the Kamino ones, maybe like Nala say actually like did something to her genes and then turn added extra chromosomes or whatever and then turn her
Yeah, there's a
into
secret
from a
recipe
boy
in
to a
there.
girl.
You
Yeah.
know, yeah. There's McDonald's Big Mac sauce special recipe. And yeah, that's such a fun wrinkle to introduce, because just as we were talking about last episode, we know that a lot of people balked at the idea that a main character in this series would be a kid, because I think a lot of Star Wars fans, they just want it to be badass and they want it to be cool, and then they're afraid that if you introduce a child character, it will be lame. But we need to remember that the Clone Wars ultimately is a series that is aimed at kids, definitely not very young kids, but like, 10, 11, 12, 13, like, I can imagine watching this show when I was around that age.
I mean,
and
Ahsoka
and I think,
was Ahsoka was basically maybe like, at least 13. Yeah, because that's when that's when you need to be a Padawan. If not, you just get to sent to the agricultural corps or something.
Right, so Omega is kind of like the Ahsoka to the Bad Batch, and it'll be interesting to see how that relationship pans out, because there's a scene where she chooses to sit with them in a canteen, and then they have a little food fight
That was
and everything,
fun.
which was just fun. Wrecker is very excited about the food fight. Okay, and then after that, they're called for a special evaluation. They are called for a combat evaluation, which they've done 100 times before. You've seen the grid kind of training room, and all the droids come up, and it's very standard. But then something happens, Asmi.
Actually, we see and then Tarkin was like, let's take it up a notch. I mean, these clones, this Bad Batch can definitely take it. And then we see the first iterations of Dark Troopers before we see it in The Mandalorian. This is probably like the first version, the first wave of Dark Troopers. And then they were using live rounds. It's probably just an excuse for Tarkin to take out as many clones as he can. Because Tarkin, as you might know, he is against the usage of clones. I think he just wants humans to do everything. He's probably like racist, speciesist, whatever.
Yeah, and that's interesting, right? We might get into that, because if there's a conscripted army, that means that the ideology of the Empire, it's easier for that to spread. Because if you have clones, they're already pre-programmed with the ideology, but you're not really doing a lot of propaganda, you're not doing a lot of spreading the message that the Empire is ultimately acting in the best interests of the galaxy. And when you have a military, that's what happens, right? And I wonder whether or not we'll see that explored further in the Bad Batch. We might. And yeah, that's a good point, that it's just like, oops, live rounds, accident. And there's a great bit where they figure out how to deal with it, and Tech is like on the fly trying to reprogram a Dark Trooper, so he's sitting on like a Dark Trooper's shoulders,
and then like
and
control
piloting
and
him, having hot wire him.
exactly. I actually like the bit about when Hunter uses hand signals to communicate to Tech and Wrecker, and Wrecker was like, well, what are you talking about? I don't even understand what you're talking about. What is up with these hand signals? And then Tech was like, you would know if you memorize the hand signals. And then Wrecker was like, well, you memorize it then. I already did. It's
Yeah, and it's great, because like your sort of opposite ends of the spectrum is Wrecker and Tech, right? You got the jock and your nerd, and I always like it when like the jock and the nerd, like they are sort of unwilling buddies in a thing, and I look forward to that. I mean, you got 5 main characters, so you always play with the pairings, like who do you set up with whom, and definitely we've seen a lot of like Hunter and Crosshair, because they clash, because Crosshair's always questioning Hunter's authority, and then it comes in that Hunter, somehow his inhibitor chip is a bit more active than
it's
the
Crosshair.
others. No, not Hunter, sorry. Crosshair. So then Crosshair is taken away, and he is has a medical procedure performed on him to further amplify and kind of reset the inhibitor chip. So now Crosshair is officially a bad guy.
yeah. And Hunter was sent to prevent the Bad Batch from leaving the cloning facility, because they wanted to get away from
Sorry,
it all.
Crosshair. We're mixing up Crosshair and Hunter.
Oh man, yeah. I mean, Crosshair was sent by Tarkin to stop the Bad Batch from leaving Camino, basically.
Yeah, and we have a great kind of shuttle escape scene, and then so you're like, okay, this is now the new gang. The new gang is you know that meme. X is no longer my friendship with X ended. Y is now my new best friend. It's like, friendship with Crosshair ended. Omega is my new best friend.
Yeah. I mean, we missed out on the Saw Gerrera part when Tarkin sent the Bad Batch to a mission. It says we need to take out this group of insurgents. And
oh, that's right. Yeah,
when,
that comes before. Yeah.
When we arrived there, it turns out it's Saw Gerrera and gang. I like this new Saw Gerrera. It's in between the Clone Wars Saw Gerrera and the Civil War Saw Gerrera.
Yeah, it's voiced by an actor called Andrew Kishino, and you kind of see the very first beginnings of the rebellion, and it's the Bad Batch kind of realizing, like, wait, there are kids here, there are families, why are we sent to kill them? And they also notice there's a probe droid, so Tarkin's been watching them, and that is where all of them, like, except for Crosshair, make the decision that they can't continue to act as agents of the Empire, so they kind of make their stand pretty early on.
I think that probably like brings us to the end of the episode. The 1 hour and 20 minutes passed by. 1 hour 15 minutes passed by really quickly watching this Bad Batch episode, because we move from event to event really quickly, and it's like there's no time for us to actually rest and absorb everything.
Yeah. And I do like that there is kind of quote unquote downtime in that we spend a little bit of time in Camino, and we sort of see them regroup, and then we see like them in their quarters, and we see the conflict between Hunter and Crosshair play out. And I love that bit that Echo is told that he's more machine than man now, which is a little throwback to Obi-Wan's description of Darth Vader. And this is a good kind of like pilot movie, and so to kind of set things up like for all the future episodes, Azmi basically knows much more about everything than I do. I count myself as a huge Star Wars fan, but I feel like I haven't watched or read the majority of things, and I'm not up to date on like all the Clone Wars stuff, on all the Rebels stuff, let alone the Legends, like expanded universe novels and things. I've only read The Courtship of Princess Leia long ago when I was a child. So we have a running joke about the Killiks, which are this termite race from the expanded universe, and we're trying to force that into a recurring joke. This is Podcasting 101. Telegraph and tell your audience in advance what the in-joke is going to be. Don't let it happen organically. Force it, ram it in. So, the perspective that...
I mean, for me, the Killiks are like unnecessary in the current Star Wars universe, in current Star Wars lore, and I think they weren't really portrayed really well in the expanded universe as well.
Yeah, so I think kind of the point that we're coming from is that, you know, there's so much stuff in Star Wars, and I understand the point of view of people saying, like, you know, everything is sacred, but I don't think that's the way to approach it for me. I don't think that's how I look at Star Wars. It's like, sure, you know, there's some parts that are kind of silly and some parts work better than other parts, and they kind of take it as a whole. And I think that the rejection of some parts of Star Wars, it can drive people into kind of an angry or bitter place. So certainly there are things in any franchise, any property that you like more than others, and certainly there are things that happen that you might have a visceral negative reaction to. But I think that on the whole, even leaving aside like the reception to the sequels and everything, there are a lot of places for Star Wars to go, and there are a lot of places for Star Wars to go that will interest people, and we've seen that in The Mandalorian, and we're seeing that now in The Bad Batch, and there's so much stuff coming out on Disney Plus with Obi-Wan and Andor and Ahsoka and The Acolyte and all of these shows and the Rangers of the New Republic. So I think there's a lot more to Star Wars, but I also am of the point of view that everyone's entry point is valid, right? Whatever brought you into Star Wars, that's okay. If your first exposure to Star Wars was Caravan of Courage, that's fine, right? And it's like, I don't think it's anyone's place to sort of tell anybody that you're not a real fan because of XYZ. So I'm definitely going to this with Azmi being my guide to the lore, to a lot of the lore that I don't know, because I think I approach Star Wars mainly from a filmmaking perspective. But yeah, definitely I watched, the episodes of the Clone Wars with the Bad Batch in them, and I liked the idea. It's a Dirty Dozen, right? It's a standard kind of the rogue team in a war movie setup, and there's a lot of potential for that. And I love the idea of how different is different when you have a clone who is quote unquote defective or not a regular. How far is that variation?
Yeah, I think it's a really good way to tell the Star Wars story through this bunch of characters who sees the galaxy differently from the audience, from even the main characters like the Jedi, the Sith, the Separatists, or whatever factions that you are on. These are just guys who were doing their jobs as soldiers and then gets thrown out into the wild. Basically without any directions.
Yeah, and I think it's gonna be fun to see where they find their place. And I've seen the second episode, and the second episode drops, I think, Friday. And that will kind of give you an indication for where it's going. And I think there are people who prefer episodic stuff, and there are people who prefer arc stuff. So it'll be interesting to see how they balance that. Because eventually, I do want the Bad Batch to fight like a Zillo Beast kind of thing. I do want them to have a big monster that they try to fight, because I love big monster episodes. Give me the big monsters. So I'm this is a good reintroduction to these characters and to their dynamic, and of course with the element now of Crosshair is out, Omega is in. What's gonna happen with that? And in the press conference, the moderator Ash Crossan, she asked, is Omega Grogu, right? Is Omega going to be the Bad Batch's Grogu? But I think Omega is more like the Bad Batch's Ahsoka.
Yeah, that's right. You're probably right. I think we'll get more stories of the Bad Batch through the eyes of Omega and how she grows up with them, like how Ahsoka grew up with the clones and the Jedi and all that.
And it's also I love it's a little bit obvious, but it's also consistent with Star Wars level of symbolism, where Omega, the last Greek letter, the last letter in the Greek alphabet, she's the last clone, right?
Yeah. She's definitely the last clone, I believe. Yeah. Actually, not
so
really.
So that's kind of fun.
As of now, she's not the last clone because we see the tanks of embryos on Kamino, but most probably they will get destroyed by the Empire.
Oh no.
Yeah, you see?
Yeah, you're gonna get a lot of flaming tubes of embryos.
Unless Lamasu or Taungwi sells it off in a black market. Hey, I have clones for sale. The Empire doesn't want it anymore. So you can do whatever you want with these clones, but they're all gonna look alike. Here's the controls, whatever. You can do whatever you want. Can be mercenaries, can be a slave, can be bounty hunters or your partner, whatever. Yeah. I don't know.
Which is basically what people do with droids, right?
Yeah, exactly. But I think droids are more cost effective.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and I think there's always been a lot of talk about the level of autonomy of droids, how sentient are droids, and you saw a little bit of that explored with L337 in Solo, where she has droids' rights and stuff, and I think definitely with the idea of what is the soul of a clone? I think D. Bradley Baker is very good at getting to that in his performance, because especially characters like Rex, you could really tell they had a soul. And so we'll continue to see more of that, and I think that pretty much wraps up the first episode of The Bad Batch. We won't be reviewing every episode as in depth, but we will once in a while kind of catch up on, hey, what happened in the last few episodes of The Bad Batch.
Yeah, that's right. I think moving on, I would like to see whatever happens to the Bad Batch and how they go about navigating through the galaxy. Are they just simple men trying to make their way in the universe?
Yeah, and I think like in terms of new characters, I don't want them to fully rely only on characters whom we know and we love, even though it's always nice to see them come back. I do want to see new characters, and I want to see how they deal with the politics of this sudden shift in regime from the Republic to the Empire and what that means. And but I am also looking forward to like Fennec Shand and whoever else they throw at us. And anyone who's watching The Mandalorian, like now they all need to go and catch up. They need to go and watch Clone Wars and Rebels and figure out who is this and who is that. And I think like the Bad Batch will be added to that list of like required viewing for future things. It will be fun to see whether or not this ties into Kenobi, for example, because there's a possibility that it might, right?
Yeah, they probably might run across Kenobi on Tatooine. And speaking of Kenobi,
I would love that. Yeah.
Speaking of Kenobi, Ewan McGregor actually had a recent interview with Hollywood Reporter, and he says that he's been doing like sword training, hand-to-hand training, and it's like hand-to-hand. What, Obi-Wan now like beating up denizens of Tatooine?
Obi-Wan, master of Terras Kasi.
Yeah. I mean, I would like to see them. I mean, he obviously is on the run from the Empire, and he doesn't want to use his lightsaber as much because that would tell everyone, hey, this fella's a Jedi. We better call the Empire.
Yeah, and I think like definitely, I remember years ago, I think it was Sideshow, right? They made this Mythos statue. They made a statue of Obi-Wan in between Episode 3 and 4. And
yes,
so
that was
like
beautiful.
Halfway,
I love
a
it.
beautiful statue. And there's so much storytelling in that one piece because he has like the gaffy stick, he has his Clone Wars general armor on his back, and his face is halfway between Ewan McGregor and Alec Guinness. And so that figure, that like lone figure wandering the desert, there's
and
such
he has
an evocative quality to that.
If you realize, he has two sabers. One is his own, and one is Anakin's.
That's right. Yeah. And I hope that in the Kenobi series, we do see him in a similar getup with similar kind of gear. And I know that like Suhaimi made a custom of like a Black Series custom of this look that I saw on display at Star Wars Day in 2018. And I think Ewan McGregor also talked about how he was disheartened by the negative reception to the prequels at the time. But actually, if you look at like the Rotten Tomatoes kind of score, right? In as far as Rotten Tomatoes is not like the most reliable metric, it's very interesting. So, okay, episode 1 gets a 52%, right? Which is not great. But then episode 2 gets a 65%. And episode 2 is usually referred to, a lot of people like it the least, right? And then Revenge of the Sith jumps up and is an 80%. And 80% is really good, right? So, I think the reviews at the time and how we look back on it now, it's different. And something like Star Wars, the context matters. The context of like what frame you're viewing things in, and
exactly
how things have changed since then. And definitely the prequels have grown a lot in appreciation because, like in no small part, because of the Clone Wars. Because the Clone Wars fleshes out so much of the characters of Obi-Wan and Anakin, and then introduces very important characters like Ahsoka and Satine and Bo-Katan and all of these other pieces of lore, and gives us a lot more to do with the clones, with Rex and Cody and Wolf and Fives and people like that. So I think that, it will change. Like, the perception and the relationship to stuff will change. And Ewan McGregor definitely has been one part of the prequels that everyone has always liked. Nobody's ever had beef with Ewan McGregor's Obi-Wan.
Yeah, everybody loves Ewan McGregor's Obi-Wan. I think he's like the shining light of the prequels.
Yeah, and it's also really frustrating whenever you watch any, like, not to unnecessarily crap on George Lucas, but anytime you watch behind the scenes stuff of him trying to direct actors, you can feel the actors' frustration. You can feel like Hayden Christensen's frustration. You can feel like there's really like nothing here for me to go off. So I think putting Star Wars in the hands of filmmakers who work really well with actors, and you've seen a lot of that throughout The Mandalorian, I think that's fun. It's fun to see performances and to see actors acting with other actors, which the prequels had very little of. Because the prequels had actors acting with a ping pong ball before that was like a normal thing, and they didn't know where to look and stuff. So I'm looking forward to. I think it's just a matter of like the humanity of it, And that's one of the things that a lot of people felt was lacking from the prequels, is a sense of humanity, because the prequels was a lot about procedure and a lot about the political process and the Trade Federation and the Confederacy and stuff like that. Whereas I think the original trilogy had a lot of heart, because it was a lot about the individual characters and their relationships to each other, more so than the prequels were.
Yeah, and also I think Ewan McGregor was like saying he was like really tired of like seeing blue screens and green screens in the prequels, and then he's like appreciating that this Obi-Wan Kenobi series will be like film like how Mandalorian was filmed, with the stagecraft LED screen behind him, or all around him actually.
Yeah, that's definitely a step up. And I remember in the Disney Gallery making of series for The Mandalorian, Taika Waititi said that the stagecraft technique allowed him to film a sunset for 12 hours, which you can't do in real life.
I wish there was sunset
Not
for
that I
12
know.
hours.
Yes, that would be a very nice kind of resort atmosphere. So, Azmi, I'm looking at our little planning document for this episode, and you have some announcements that Disney made about their parks, about the Galaxy's Edge sections of the Disney Star Wars parks.
Yeah, it's gonna be called like Star Wars Galactic Starcruiser. It's basically just a 2-day stay for you, the people who wants to go there or have the money to go there. Basically, you just will be traveling on board a starship and living out your own Star Wars story. Basically, you are your own main character in this Star Wars story.
So this is really cool, right? This
yeah, so
concept,
you're probably like doing stuff and then like interacting with characters from Star Wars universe. Probably even like well-known characters like Rey, Chewbacca, and all that. And also Rey, Disney actually announced this new lightsaber. It's a retractable LED blade. That's cool. I saw it last night. It's like the wow factor is there, but unfortunately you can't buy it. It's only for the performers, the character actors on board the Galactic Starcruiser.
Yeah, I think one of the coolest things in the world is Disney Imagineering. And there's a really good documentary series on Disney Plus called The Imagineering Story, that kind of tracks the people who work on specifically the parks, who work on the design and the special effects and the theming of the theme parks. And Disney is one of the best out there in terms of experiential storytelling, and you step into a theme park and you feel like you're not on Earth, like you feel like you're not in the real world. And that effect, I think Galaxy's Edge, I would so love to go to Galaxy's Edge. And this Halcyon Starcruiser thing is a really cool concept. And the idea is that it's a simulated space cruise ship, basically. So it's like, what if you were on a cruise ship, a luxury cruise ship in the Star Wars universe? And so you enter into this building where it is made up as if it is the Starcruiser, and when you go to your room and you look out the window, you're looking at space. And when you look out the windows of the restaurant, you're looking at space. And I think right now we're not sure how much of a story component there is, like whether or not each person is assigned a character, because that was something we heard early on they were experimenting with for the hotels. Then when you check into the hotel, you become a Star Wars character, and then you have a little mission, you have a little storyline. Because the description I'm reading right now, it sounds like it is basically a cruise ship format transposed onto Star Wars. That there is like a dining room, and there's a navigation room, and there's all of these activities that you do on a cruise ship, but it's a Star Wars version of those activities.
Yeah, so the Star Wars version includes like jumping to hyperspace, learning how to pilot, maybe even fire a blaster, maybe even learn how to use a lightsaber. I don't know.
It says here that there's like a lightsaber, kind of wield a lightsaber experience bit.
Yeah, there'll be. I mean, like as we all know, all the Star Wars sections of Disney World, Disneyland, and all that, they all have like this Jedi training thing going on, like the Jedi. They used to call it Jedi Academy. So it's basically
Yeah,
just kids going on stage and learning how to do 1, 2, 3, 4 steps of using the lightsaber, and then you get to fight against Darth Vader, Darth Maul, Kylo Ren, or whatever. Like basically like how Fight Saber does the academy on stage with the kids.
Yeah, years ago I went, I think it was early 2017, so they were still building Galaxy's Edge, it wasn't open yet. But the Jedi Academy kind of show or experience, it was really fun because they gave like all the kids little robes and little lightsabers, and it was very cute. And the premise was that I think they were both women. The Padawan and the Master were women, and this was set around the time of the sequel trilogy. So then you had them fight like the Spectres, you had them fight the Force manifestations of Vader and Kylo Ren, but also I think the Seventh Sister was one of the costume characters that came out, and it was really fun to see like the Seventh Sister costume done in real life.
Yeah,
with the helmet design and everything.
The characters always change accordingly to what the current Star Wars timeline is at. Yeah,
Yeah, they kinda rotate,
previously
right?
it's Darth Vader, and then after that, when prequels were around, it was Darth Maul, and then when the sequels, it's Kylo Ren, and with Rebels, you have the Seventh Sister.
Yeah, and they had this thing where the temple, it rises out from the ground. And I thought that was really cool. But yeah, I have always wanted to go to Galaxy's Edge, and maybe one day in the far post-COVID future, I'll be able to do that. Okay, so I'm putting this out on the air, and it is very sad, but I'm putting it out on the air. My dream has always been to take all my wedding photos in Galaxy's Edge. So the first step is, of course, to find a willing accomplice to do that with, and I haven't gotten to that stage yet.
Let's all support Jed in his endeavor to get married at Disneyland or Galaxy's Edge.
Yeah, send all your applications. But yeah, it's no, because I've always like wanted to have all, you know how people like they go to Hokkaido for their wedding photos or something, or they take their wedding photos overseas. I've wanted all my wedding photos to be in the interior of the Millennium Falcon.
Yeah.
So it's like popping up from the smuggler hatch. You know, one person's in the pilot seat, one person's in the co-pilot seats, playing that Jerick holo chess. One person's in the aft gunner, one person's in the fore gunner. So all of these like ideas, and there hasn't been a standing permanent Millennium Falcon until now. Until the Millennium Falcon in Galaxy's Edge, the Smuggler's Run Ride. So this is possible. This is now a plausible goal. Yeah, but step one is to find a woman who is willing to do this, and we haven't gotten there yet.
Preferably a Star Wars fan, yeah?
Yes. Otherwise, it's like, what are we doing? Why are we in Anaheim for no reason?
You'll have to have the whole education thing again. Tuition for you!
But yeah, I think it's you know, I've definitely met couples in the Singapore Star Wars fan community where they both love Star Wars, and I think it is such an outdated stereotype that women don't like Star Wars, that women can't like Star Wars, and also the whole thing of like, oh, you know, my wife allows me to have a collection or allows me to have this or that. So, but now we see a lot of people who their partners are just as much into it as they are, and maybe one day we will get you to discuss your relationship with your wife as it pertains to your Star Wars activities. How how okay she is with everything.
I think that's probably what all the time and content we have for now. Tell us what you like about the show, and also what would you like for us to discuss about.
Yeah, thank you so much for listening to the second episode of 5 Stars and That's the Moon. And yeah, one of my other favorite things that happened over Star Wars Day weekend was a few people approached me and said, good podcast, nice podcast. And that was really encouraging and a very pleasant surprise to hear. So thank you so much to all of you who are listening and sharing, and we hope you guys stick around.
Okay, bye, and may the Force be with you.
May the Force be with you. Bye-bye.
5 stars.
And that's no moon.